May we take number 50 in English, Sweet By and By.
Masicimeni sonke. Bawuda sakazeleni inkosi mdalo zinehlabathi. Kona ke Thixo imithombo yamanzi. Siyakubulela ngamasekungileyo kusigcina ke bona kusilondoloza. Ebudinga sibe imini yonke ke Thixo. Kodwa ke Thixo kwangesihlandlo sisonele ke Kristu. Phambi kwethrone yakho yababhala ke Kristu singabonisi nje. Cele ke Thixo sixolele amatyala esisebenza kwakunye ke Kristu nobugwenxa bethu. Inga ke Kristu umntwana wakho zathi awuyise ke Kristu amazwi akho. Inga ke baba ngafikekelele ke Kristu kumhlaba. Olungele ke Kristu ilizwi lakho sikutheme ke Thixo. Awusayisiyekele yasixhasa bawo ngamaxesha onke. Ngenxa yesizwe mthandazo ke bawo. Amen.
Coveting, craving, obsessing, valuing everything instead of God.
The heart that seeks for treasure while Christ's own love is lost. Lost like the woman at the well, trying to sustain myself with water that will never last. I struggle to see the blessing which God has given me.
Grasping at the fleeting things that stroke my worldly flame. The shimmer of this ambition blinds my eyes. Not everything that shimmers is gold. Just like Hannah, I say a little prayer, not realizing the man that has always been there, Jesus.
So before our speaker, Pastor Blose, steps forward, I would like you guys to join us and sing hymn number 223.
something, but we're gonna entertain 5 to 53.
Yes, I
Can I greet the church in the name of Jesus Christ? Amen. All right. Pastor Bet just sent me a text now. He says you should come late more often. They sing better when you're late, and I think I'll take his advice. You guys are sounding amazing, man, and you should do that more often. I'm sure that you feel much better after singing, right? It's always a joy to be engaged in lively worship. It's always such a great joy too. So I thoroughly enjoyed listening to you guys. So tonight. So by the way, I didn't know there were twins on campus. Can I share the story? Yeah. So I didn't know there were twins on campus. So I keep seeing this girl. Each time I see her, she's wearing something different. But like she doesn't change outfits. She swaps 2 outfits a day. So she'll be wearing black, and then the next time I see her, she's wearing a white jacket. And then I see her again, she's back to the white jacket. And I see her again, she's back to the black jacket. But until today, I was like, no man, the devil is a liar. There is no way we can have some. So I tried to stop her to find out what's wrong with you. Why do you change so often? And then she told me that they're actually twins. I thought that was such a fascinating experience. 3. Oh no, not that there are 3 of you. Oh, there are 3 sets of twins on campus in the girls' dorm. No, wait. Let's not. I know everyone wants you guys to stand. If you are comfortable with it, you can. But if not, you can. But I'd love to see the sets. Can I just see the hands? Just for I know you two, because you've been having fun at my expense all week. Oh, there she is. Okay. And the other set, you can just raise your hands. Let me see. Oh wow. Oh, okay. That's fascinating. Yeah. So I mean, good luck. Yeah, I always thought that like if I was an identical twin, I'd have so much fun with people. Like I'd have so much fun at people's expense. So I don't know if you guys have tried that. You haven't tried that, like just to play around with, because it's so easy. Yeah. All right. So let's just get back to tonight's message. I'll try and keep it brief tonight, because we've got a long weekend ahead of us. And so today we're looking at the book Steps to Christ, and we're looking at the theme growing in Christ, growing in Christ. The book Steps to Christ, or growing up into Christ. This is found in the book Steps to Christ. So, but I'll root that in the book of Romans chapter 12 verse 1 and 2. The book of Romans chapter 12 verse 1 and 2. And it reads as follows: I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. Amen. All right. So what do you call this? Life sciences. Yeah, no, now as a school we used to call it biology. One of the cardinal rules of life sciences was that all living things must grow, and if they don't grow, or if they are not growing, they are dying. So all living things reach a point of growth, and they grow, and they reach a point where they stop growing. But that when they stop growing, they start declining, which means they are dying. And so it appeals, or rather it applies to every facet of life, like everything and every space and area of life. If you're not growing in a certain avenue, if you're not growing in a certain aspect of your life, you must know that you are dying, all right? If you're not growing in that, you are dying, you are declining. I think when someone was reading the bio this morning, and I said, one of those interesting facts that I'd cycled so many races. I think the point of that was actually to highlight that I like having fun on a bicycle, but then I like trying to find ways of using my fun to do something meaningful. Right? There was a time when cycling was all about me and all for me, until I discovered, man, I enjoy this thing, but there's a way of making a difference using this thing. Right? and that came as a result of you've done all these races, you have, gotten PRs, you've done them multiple times, you keep getting better times and better times and better times. I think my best time was at the 94.7 in Johannesburg. I think I did it in 2 hours, 54 minutes. That was like the fastest I'd ever gone on a bicycle. No, yeah, the fastest that I'd ever gone on a bicycle. But then it sort of feels hollow and empty at some point because you're like, okay, now what? Right, so you stand there and you get a medal. Now what? And so you find a way of turning that to use it so that other people can benefit from that. That I'm not saying be like me, like I'm not putting myself as a standard, but I'm saying that at some point there's a point where you have to say, okay, I've done this long enough. I've been in this avenue. I've been in this territory long enough. What's next, right? What comes after this? And it's something that you have to keep asking yourself time and time and again if you are serious about your life. When you read the book of Romans, and let's do this for so that we're diligent and faithful to the text. I don't want to say things that then you say, but where'd you get that? It's right there in the text. Especially if you read verse 1, it says, present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. Right? And then verse 2, it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I just want to take those two things, those two sections, because it can get quite dense if we do the whole thing. So it says, by the mercies of God, you present your bodies, right, before God as a living sacrifice. And then the second one is that be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's interesting there that Paul, when he talks about being transformed, right, he uses a word that is very popular in biology, which is what metamorphosis it's the word that from which we get the word metamorphosis, metamorphe, which is the process, through which frogs, tadpoles, start off as tadpoles, and they evolve and they metamorphosize and they become frogs. But that's maybe not such a great example. Maybe a better one is silkworms and how they morph and they metamorphosize and they become butterflies. And that process and that word is so powerful that process says, right, that all life must grow to a point where the next phase of your life renders you unrecognizable from your previous phase, right? When you look at a butterfly, you cannot tell that where a butterfly takes flight, there was once a silkworm or there was once a worm or something as disgusting as a worm. When that butterfly fully develops and takes flight, right, you cannot recognize its origins as a worm, unless, of course, you look pretty close. And so Paul here is challenging the saints, right? Not saying, of course, he's talking about a butterfly, but he's challenging the church that, and you and I, of course, to say, grow and develop, metamorphosize, and morph in every single age, or a single aspect or a single phase of your life, to the point where when we meet you after your growth, we are unable to tell and we are unable to point out who you were before you reached this level. All right, so that's growth. It requires you to grow. And what's important about this is that this growth is not something you do for us, not something you do for your parents. It's something that you need to do for yourself, so that you are also awake to the fact that you are alive. And so I'm growing and I'm aware of the fact that I'm alive. And that's why I'm growing. That's why I'm developing. And that's why I'm progressing and I'm moving forward. There were things that I couldn't do well, and there are things that I now do well and I've mastered. And once you have mastered them, you move forward to the next phase. And so Paul here is challenging us to metamorphosize, to grow, and to outgrow the previous phases of our lives and to assume a new role and a new character, man, and a new personality and new expertise, new experiences in the next phases of our lives. Now, imagine. So when I grew up, we used to play with bricks, bricks like building bricks outside the house on sand, and you'd use them as cars, right? Like, you use that as a car, right? This is when you're around about 4 or 5. Yeah, you're using these bricks. And then someone knocks your brick, and then it's like knocking your car. And then you fight for real. Because why are you knocking my car? Because that's the sum total of your world. Like, it's real. It might be a brick, but it's real to you, right? And then we grew up, and we got to about 6, 7. We then discovered that there was a clay deposit in a stream next to my house. So we'd go and dig out the clay and make cars with the clay. And then we evolved and discovered that if you build a car out of clay, and you put glue on it, right? After you've made it, it remains intact for a really long time. And if you put glue, then you can also paint the clay, then put the glue on top of it, and it looks nice. So that was when we were 6 and 7. and 8. And then when we were around about 9, 10, we discovered that, man, you can actually make wire cars, right? Motozoxing cars, right? So you'd take this, you take wires and you put them together and you make them cars. We started off with what's this, cool drink cans as wheels. And then we evolved and we started using lids of bottles as tires and as wheels. And then we got to a point where we were able to make our own wheels using milk, these milk bottles, these translucent milk bottles that you could paint. And, it was nice, man. You're a creator. And then we got to about 13, 14. Imagine as a 13, 14-year-old, right? We graduated from these wire cars. And we built, I don't know, man, in English. Yeah, but there's no English word. So, cards, ne? Yeah, demand. So you'd make a card out of planks, right? We made cards out of planks. Oh man, and that was awesome because you'd hit the planks and arrange them so nicely. Then you'd have the time of your life, souping out your cart. Have different chairs on there. Sometimes you'd put leather chairs, put leather straps as a steering wheel, and then we graduated to wheelbarrow wheels, right? As the wheels of this car. Of course, if you had wheelbarrow wheels, right, you had the fastest car around. Those things moved. So what you do is you'll drag it up a hill or a long road, like Helderberg College Road, right? Right to the top. Then your friends will push you down, and it goes. You had the time of your lives. Of course, the bruises and the scratches were all worth it, right? And it goes down, and then you had to control it using a rope, and it was awesome. And some guys found the science of putting in car tires, right, on these carts, and best time of our lives. And then I remember I was 18, and my friend's dad had a car, a real car, and he said, I know where the keys are. Who can drive? Right. When did you learn to drive? No, I've seen my aunt. Okay. We got in there, started the car, took the car. Guys, I drove that thing on first gear. The whole township, and then you stop, and then somehow we made it back. No, nothing bad happened. God has loved me for a long time, yeah. So then we brought it back, and then I parked it. We parked it, but of course you can't park it properly, The most exhilarating thing, right? Now, it was like 18, 19. And then eventually, when I was 25, I got my first car after I graduated from Helderberg, and I started working. Can you imagine if you saw me now, down here, just at the bottom of the girls' door, on the floor, with a brick in my hand, going, right? Like, what would you think? Like, you saw me down there at the girls' dorm, and I'm busy with the brick, and I'm like, and then, hi, sir, hi, do you want to play? And then I'm like, and I, what would you think? What would you think, right? Hey, this guy, underdeveloped, or there's something. See, because we all understand the basic rule of growth and life, it is that there are phases you have to outgrow. You can't be stuck in the same phase for the rest of your life. At some point, you have to, it becomes unfashionable to do things when you get to a certain age, right? It becomes unfashionable. It just becomes, if not unfashionable, it becomes concerning. Why are you still doing that, right? And so I use this illustration to talk to a cousin of mine who was 32 and would still go out every weekend, come home drunk at 32, come home drunk, and he would have to open for him at 32. So I got tired of it. And I said to him, bruh, you were doing this when you were 15. You are 32. Right? That means for 17 years you haven't grown. Right? If the same things that entertained you as a 15-year-old are still entertaining you as a 32-year-old, then we've got a bigger problem than your love for a nice time. Right? The biggest problem we have is that you are not growing. And at some point, growth is not something that we can demand of you, right? It is something that you have to demand of yourself for yourself. Okay? Because everyone else is growing. Everyone else is growing. And true to form, right? He doesn't change because we are the ones that see the need for him to change. So he doesn't change. We change, we grow, we get jobs, we get married, we move away. Then he starts crying, you guys have forgotten me. You don't care about me. Yeah, because life has been, no, life wasn't hard on you. We all had the same opportunities. We all started on the same place. We all started with the same lack of resources. It's just that many of us realized the need for growth. And so sometimes life doesn't punish you. Life does not see, people think that they're punished by life when they don't make it. No, the problem is that life is unforgiving when you refuse to grow with it. Are you with me? And so at some point, you have to say, man, no, but I deserve better. 18-year-old me deserves better than to be governed by a 12-year-old me. Can I say that again? Like at some point, you have to say, no, 18-year-old me deserves better than to be governed by an 18-year-old me. And so Paul calls us to this thing, man. Grow, man. Just grow, you know. And I always say to people, that's why when people say, you've changed, it's not an insult. It's a compliment. We are supposed to change. We are supposed to grow. None of us are supposed to remain the same. We are supposed to grow. We are supposed to change. We are supposed to become better. And so if you're not jealously guarding your own growth, and by the way, when we say grow, we're not just saying grow out of certain things, but we're also saying grow into something, right? Are you aware of what you are becoming? Are you even conscious of what you're becoming? I know that many of us live our lives trying to unbecome, but are you aware of what you're becoming? Are you aware of the kind of person you're designing for yourself and the kind of life that person is going to deliver to you? People always say, if you could talk to your 12-year-old self now, what would you say? Right? I don't know what I would say to my 12-year-old self. I've forgotten my 12-year-old self, but I know that if I could talk to my 65-year-old self now, right, I'd tell him, yeah, be grateful for me, because these are the things I'm putting in place. And when you find these things in place, don't mess them up, because I worked hard to put them in place. I sacrificed for these things, right? And so, yeah, just a roundabout way of saying, please, man, please just watch your addiction to your current phase of life. It can become detrimental, right? You need to know that you are here for a good time, but not for a long time. Whatever phase that you're in, you're there for a good time. And there's nothing wrong with having a good time in that phase that you're in. But make sure that the good time you're having is not detrimental to you making it to the next stage of your life. Many of us are walking around old and still carrying scars, the mistakes that our younger selves made. And so as you grow into something else, make sure you also give the older you less things to get over. Right? Yeah. So you have to grow. Even, it's getting serious, ne? So let's water it down a bit. Like, but it's not not that it's not a serious point. This is an important point, okay? This is very important. But even like, I always thought when I was here at Helderberg that I'm not gonna be one of those preachers that talk about mjolo and dating on the pulpit. Like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, but this is an illustration, okay? Because I remember there was a pastor who preached about dating and whatever, and afterwards I got dumped outside. So I was like, I'm never gonna do that to young people, ever again. But I mean, even the way that you maybe not, let's not even commit or show up in relationships, but even what you use as an assessment to date someone, like it has to show and shows, it has to grow and show some level of growth and development. It can't always be looks all the time. It can't always be looks. I mean, looks are important, but it can't always be looks. Like the deal breaker can't be looks. It has to be something else, and something, we always say, it has to be values based. Right? And so let me share this with you. I worked as a waiter while I was studying, not here. I was still studying at UKZN. So I worked as a waiter just to pay for my studies. And there was this guy at the restaurant that I used to work with, at. And his name was Francis. So Francis had a girlfriend. So Francis had a girlfriend, right? And we would, hi man, that's Francois. This is Francis. So Francis had a girlfriend, right? So Francis had a girlfriend, and he loved this girl. And they would go out, we'd work double shifts, and he'll tell me, no, I want to work a double shift. He was a hard worker. I want to work a double shift because I'm planning to, go out with my girlfriend. We're planning. He used to do these amazing things with this girl, right? They'll go out to the South Coast, Giba Gorge. Like this guy would work and then take her there, and then have fun and stuff. And sometimes buy her a phone. He was working like a waiter, like me, and I was a student at the time. Francis was a hard worker. Then I got to know Francis, right? And I heard that Francis was raised by a single mother, right? Francis' mother is a single parent, and Francis has 3 other siblings, so there's 4 of them. And Francis is the oldest of the 4, right? He's the oldest, and he's raised by a single mother. So I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. And all his siblings look like him. When you see them, they look exactly like Francis, And you see his mom, and she comes in to work, sometimes to greet him, and they're walking past. It's a lovely family. So I get used to them, and I get familiar with them. And then the mom tells me hey, I'm praying for you. Now this lady, Francis' mother, says to me, I'm praying for you. And I said, oh, why? Well, you never ask why, but you're curious, And then she says, so that these people may pay you more. Oh, I thought we were fine. We're making enough tips, I'm making my way through school. Turns out, all the money that Francis was making there, he was spending on his girlfriend, right? And he wasn't taking it. Now, contrast this. The girlfriend comes, every time she talks about Francis, she talks about how much of a man he is and how much he shows up, how much she trusts him. There's nothing he can't do. When Francis is a man of his word. When Francis says we are going to do this, he does it. So I've got a girlfriend who says Francis is a man, and I've got a mother who believes Francis doesn't have money, right? And so I sit there and I look at this guy and I look at Francis and I want to tell this girl, right? If I could go back now with what I know now, I would tell this girl that what he's doing to his mother, one day he will do to you, right? So I come to Helderberg, I study, and I finish, and I'm a pastor, and I meet Francis and this lady, right? They're with their kids, right? It's a family now. They're a family. While I was busy studying, they were getting married. So they're family, right? It's almost like 7 years later. They're a family and they're happy and stuff. But so I talk to them, engage with them. But I can hear the lady's language has changed about Francis. He's no longer the man. She's now talking about, we are trying. Things, it's hard. Our parents never told us that marriage was hard. People change in marriage, Yes, so I asked Francis, what's going on? It's like, she's always asking for money. And she's complaining, says, this guy doesn't bring money home. He goes and spends it with his friends. And I thought, there it is. You see, Francis didn't change. Okay. Francis had always been that guy who never brings money home. It's just that at some point she was a beneficiary of his irresponsible behavior. And when she was still benefiting from his irresponsible behavior, she never called him to order. Then she became his responsibility. And then he continued what he's always been. See, Francis doesn't do this thing of bringing money home. He didn't do it with his mother. He's not going to do it with his wife. And at times, you're going to have to grow to a point where you are able to spot the red flags even though you are benefiting from them. So keep it. So at some point you're going to have to be able, right, to say, and there's a choice that, like at that moment, right, what his irresponsible behavior or her irresponsible behavior is a benefit to you, but you can foresee that if this thing remains, it will one day become a burden for me, right? And so you either call it out or you run for your life, right? Because one day, whatever you are benefiting from, you have to be able to say, look, this thing might be a benefit to me, but I'm only 20, that's why it's nice. One day I'll be 40, and this thing, I'll be too old to be dealing with this thing. Are you with me, friends? And so, this is not just in relationships, but also in the choices that you make for yourself, in the choices that you make. And so Paul here says, grow, man, by the renewing of your minds. Again, it's this transformation has to be with the renewing of your minds, and it's a favorite aspect of mine. Yo, let me see what time. Yeah, I've got to sit down now. This thing, like, so my son comes to me, and he says to me, Daddy, do you know the capital? What did he say? He says, do you know the capital of Ohio in America? Yeah, he asked me something like that. Do you know the capital of Ohio? Yeah, I thought about it. He's like, hey, this boy got me. I don't know this thing. So of course, when you're a parent, you don't say, I don't know. You say, wait, Daddy's busy now. Yeah. You say, wait, Daddy's busy. So I went back and I Googled this thing. I Googled it. And I came back to him. What were you saying? Yeah. He asked this question, bah, and I give him the answer. He likes asking me these questions, like these weird questions, and sometimes I don't have the answer available. So I'll always say, hey, boy, Daddy's busy right now. There are people I need to pray for. Give me time, and then we'll talk about this. As soon as he leaves, I go back on Google. I'm like, hey, man, this boy is asking me this thing. What is this? And Google gives me an answer. And then I come back and I tell him, see, I can't afford to have my son thinking there are things I don't know. Because if my son always gets I don't know from me, he's going to get the answers from other people, and sooner or later he's going to trust them more than he trusts me. So I always have to. So I don't read and I don't research things because I'm interested in them. I read and research them so that I can always have something to tell my son in order for him to trust me. So I don't inform myself so that I can be knowledgeable or be intelligent or be smart. I inform myself for the sake of my son. You cannot be satisfied with angazi. I don't know. You can't always be satisfied with that. There was a joke. It's not funny anymore, like now that I think about it. It was like a very racist joke, like a super racist joke. I said there were 3 brains. It was a white brain, I think a black brain. I don't know, brains don't have color, but it was like a black brain, and then I think it was an Indian brain. Right. Right. So then they said. So then they asked. So which one? So they asked. Then they said the white brain was cheap, and then the Indian brain was second cheapest, and the black brain was the most expensive. So then they asked, hey, why? This is not me, right? I didn't write this thing. Right. So then they asked why, and then they said no, because the white brain has been overused. It's been working, and then the Indian brain was working young, but not much. All right, but it worked, you know. And then the black brain was the one that was brand new because it had never been used, even though it was in someone's head. And I thought, you know what? All right, but I thought so I used to listen to this joke, you know, at first, and I'd go, you know. And by the way, people envy you for going to multiracial schools, Model C schools, and being like one of the first kids that go over there, and they don't know the microaggressions and micro-racism that you experience there. And so people covet your experience, they're not knowing that it comes at the cost of your humanity. Those are the kind of jokes that we had to laugh at, just so that, these are the kind of jokes we had to laugh at just to buy our belonging in those schools, you know. And so, but then I realized, oh no, man, there's no way an intelligent person could have come up with that joke. There's no way that joke, that anyone smart or anyone who's well-read could have come up with that joke. That joke must have come up with someone who, like, just thought about it, maybe high, and they were like, oh yeah, you know, actually this makes sense. There's no way someone, because an unused brain can't be the most expensive, because an unused brain is a burden, right? An unused brain is the most expensive brain is the one that is used, because the most used brain is the most expansive one, right? It has many areas of its faculties functioning, right? But one that is not used, and this is how brains work. Like, they work like how my grandmother treats electricity. She says, if you're not in a room, switch off the light. We're only going to have light where we are, right? And if you're not watching the TV, switch it off. You can't watch TV and and listen to the radio at the same time. Switch off you are finishing my electricity. The brain works the same way. If the room is not being used, if the numbers are not being used, the brain shuts them down. It's not that you can't count, it's that you stopped counting. All right? And so when Paul then says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, of course, this has a spiritual dimension to it, right? Where it's like, stay informed as a Christian. There is no way that all you know is just the Bible, the verses, and because you know there are guys who know in the book, what, page, what, chapter so and so, paragraph 3, line 7, Mrs. White says, and you say, okay, you're a lawyer. What is the legislation on sexual harassment? Pastor, all these things will not matter here. They will not matter when we. You can't think like that and reason like that, especially be an expert in whatever field of you are in, right? You can't. It's good to be spiritual, but it must not come at the cost of excellence in the place where God has placed you. Right, so be informed. Excellence, and we like to think about excellence as a circular and as a human thing. Excellence is a spiritual demand that God places upon us, right? It's a demand that God places upon us. Gives these guys talents 2, 1, 2, 5. And the master comes back and he says, what did you do with the talents that I gave you? And this one says, you gave me 5, here's 10. You gave me 2, here's 4. And then the one says, I knew you are a hard man, so I hid it. And the master is unhappy with the one who hid the talent. Why? Because the business of heaven is not the business of competition. It is the business of progress. Right? I gave you something. It can't be that I gave it to you as it is and you bring it as it is. How did you fail to grow it? How did you fail? And so my fear is that many of us will take to heaven brains that are full of verses and spirit of prophetic quotes and songs and hymnals, but no other knowledge. And God will say, I created a world full of so much knowledge, and this is all you filled it with. Hello? And here's the funny thing, right? Well, it's not funny, I suppose. Here's the weird thing, is that when the one was given 2 brings 4, and the one who was given 5 brings 10, did you see that the reward is the same? Well done, you good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with little. Come now, I'll place you ruler over much. The one who's brought back 10 gets the same reward as the one who brought back 4. Or rather, the one who brought back 4 gets the same reward as the one who brought back 10. See, God is not here to reward you for outdoing your competition. He's here to reward you for outdoing your former self. Are you with me? And and you read that story of the talents. It's found in Matthew chapter 25, which is what we call an apocalyptic or eschatological prophecies of Jesus. This is Jesus talking about the end time. So the idea and the subject of excellence and growth is going to be a topic on Judgment Day. I gave you. What did you do with it? Account. Right? You can't say, no, you gave me a brain, I didn't use it. See, I kept it fresh. I go hire a car at Avis, and this guy goes around the car. He looks at it and he says, okay, there are no scratches. So if there are any scratches, then we're going to charge you. So he signs it off. And then I said to him, so also he spots the scratches around the car, right? And says, these are the scratches you must bring it back with these scratches. So he signs it off and he gives. And I say, but what happens if I improve? Like if I fix the scratches? Like what happens if I just decide that I don't want to drive this thing, a car with scratches for a weekend, so I'll go get them fixed. What happens? So he's stuck and he doesn't know how to respond to me. And he says, no, but then said that'll be at your own expense. That'll be at your own cost. But he's stuck. And I realized that Avis has a policy to, when they give me the car, they're expecting me to do worse. Like they're expecting me to damage the car. They have a policy that manages my inability to take care of their asset. And I thank God that God's policy is the exact opposite. God doesn't have a policy to manage mediocrity. He only has a policy to reward excellence. He says, I give it to you as it is. If you return it improved, I'll place you ruler over much. If you return it as it is, I don't know what to do with you. So just throw him out of the city and let him die there. Right? And almost that judgment on the one man who didn't improve the talents. Like he says, throw him out there with the murderers, the rapists, and it's personal for God. Mediocrity is personal for God. It's like you are so, how could you? How could you when you had the capacity? How could you when you had the potential? And so I want to challenge you, each and every one of you, today, starting today, to find an area of growth that you're going to pursue for the next year, for the next 6 months, and you're not going to stop until you grow in that area. Like, I'm going to go back to riding my bike. Can't buy more clothes anymore. Can't be buying bigger clothes anymore. And so I'm going to go back to riding my bike. I'm going to go back to running, and try and be fit and slim. That's my goal. Don't ask me about it. It's between me and my Lord. Right? And it's something that I'm not just doing because I want to be fit, but it's something that I need to do in order to train my mind to realize that, to train my mind to accept that once you start something, you have to be consistent and see it to completion. And what I notice is that when I'm consistent in my training, I'm very consistent in all other aspects and spheres of my life, right? And so I want to do that. That's going to be my goal. That's going to be my challenge. There are things some of you will have to stop doing, and you have to challenge yourself that it's hard. It's not easy for me to stop doing it, but I'm going to stop doing it just so that I can give myself a chance to work on a better me, right? Just to give myself a chance to work on a better version of me. Listen, whether you change or not, next year, this time will come, right? It'll come. Time moves. It does not wait for any man or woman, whether you decide to change or not. Now, I wonder, do you want to be seated with the same person next year, this time, or would you want to be seated with a different person, all right? Better version of yourself, all right? A person who can say no to what's destructive to them, and someone who can work on relationships and keep meaningful relationships. Work with someone or be with someone who has a better fitness regime, Someone who does their work on time and is not stressed by late submissions. Someone who is more disciplined, more consistent. I don't know what kind of person you want to be next year by this time, but I think it should start today. It can start today. And which better time to start it than the first of the month, which is the 1st of August, right? So that's my challenge to you. And I'm going to ask you to just pause and reflect just a little bit. Don't do what you did yesterday. Right? Just pause and reflect a little bit. Okay. What areas of your life do you think need growth? What areas of your life do you think need improvement? What things do you need to get rid of because of just the stress that they've brought your life? Right? Things you need to get rid of. Just can close your eyes, or maybe I'd ask you to do so just so you can wrestle with yourself, mano a mano, right? Just the things that you need to leave behind. What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of things that you want to pursue, do you want to work on and improve, so that by this time next year, Lord willing, we're all here, we can have testimonies about it. If you're done with your list, you can stand as we pray together. I'm going to ask Mr. Lawrence to just present us and our decisions here. may be seated. Just two things. So when you get to your rooms or wherever, just write those decisions down for yourself. They are yours, and pray over them and then pursue them. Number two, I was alerted this morning by someone I respect very much that we hadn't had time to engage or haven't been able to interact with you because after every service, I stay here so that we can pray. So what I'll do now is I'm going to walk out and I'm going to stand at that door just to shake anyone's hand who wants to shake hands. And if you've got anything that you want to ask or say, I'm going to be available at the back there.